Once you have been backed into a corner like that, you gain perspective and you know the difference between what is inconvenience and what is true fear.
Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go.
Have you ever opened up an old resume and laughed at what you found? I did that the other day. I found one from years ago and it looked like it was a middle school essay. It was too wordy. It didn't have great structure. It was more than a page and it had zero personality. And I remember thinking at the time, this is the greatest resume that I've ever created. And now looking back, it's probably not a surprise that I didn't get called back from that position. Most of us start out that way. We throw words on paper, hoping that they're going to stick. But here's the thing that I have learned after seeing thousands of resumes across my desk. And that is that good people don't get interviews just because they're qualified. They get them because they know how to show that they're qualified. And that is exactly why we made a little guide called 10 resume mistakes that could cost you the job and how to fix them. It's simple, it's free, and it's all the stuff that I wish somebody would have told me back when I was trying to figure out how to get noticed without sounding like a robot. So if you are in the middle of a job hunt or you just want to be ready for whatever comes next and you know that it's been a while since you've spruced up that resume, you can grab that free guide at the link that's here in the bottom of our show notes. Trust me, you guys, your future self is going to thank you. We are sitting down with a brand new episode of the show today, and you guys are in for a real story today, so buckle up. There are moments in life that change us, not like little ones, but the kind that really rearrange your thinking and your priorities, and they shape your courage. The kind where you look back and you say like, this is when I became somebody new, or this is when I unlocked a new level of myself that I had no idea that I had before. So I want to tell you guys about one of those moments for me personally. It's long and it is kind of ugly. And at the time, it absolutely terrified me. But more than that, it taught me something that I wish I would have known years earlier. And that is you truly don't know how tough you are until you are backed in a corner. So here's the story for you guys. When I was pregnant with Jet, so what is that, almost 8 years ago, or I guess right at 8 years ago, I was sick the entire duration of my pregnancy, all day long, every single day, and it was absolutely miserable. Jet was due, I think it was like the 1st of March. So my baby shower was in January. This would have been January of 2018. And I had a baby shower and it was wonderful. My friends put it on and it was, just incredibly special. And later that evening, around like 11:30 or so, I got so sick. Like, I don't know that I have ever thrown up that much or that hard in my entire life. We'll learn a little bit about that next. To the point where I thought that I had gotten food poisoning from my baby shower earlier that day. So then here I am feeling sick, very pregnant at this point, also worried about the fact of what if I did get food poisoning? Did all of the people who were at my baby shower today, are they also getting sick right now because they too have food poisoning? Well, it turns out I did not have food poisoning, but I woke up the next day and it was dark in our bedroom. And I remember this darkness in my left eye. And I was like, well, that is weird. And so I went to the bathroom and I turned on the light and my vision in my left eye was red. And I was like, what has happened? So I looked in the mirror. And there was nothing wrong with my eye. Like I couldn't see anything red in my eye, but in my vision, probably 50% of it was blocked. And here's what happened. So apparently, I didn't know this at the time, but I do now. When I threw up so hard that I broke a blood vessel in the back of my eye. Now, you've probably seen somebody with a burst blood vessel in their eye, especially after something like an accident, a car accident of some kind. It's very visible in the white of the eye. But mine was not that. If you were to look at me, I looked perfectly fine. But when I looked out, my vision was full of blood. Like half of my eye was blocked. And I could see these little tiny clots floating around. And because there's fluid in your eye, they would kind of move up and down. And it was really scary at the time. But that's not even the worst of it. So at that time, I had gone to the eye doctor. He recommended me to go to a retina specialist. I went to them and they said, we're going to continue to monitor it. There's nothing wrong now. It's not actively bleeding. So you're just going to come back maybe every 3 months or every 6 months for a while and get some checkups. So I did that over time. It did progressively get better, which was obviously wonderful. And then I got to the point where I only had to go back to this retina specialist every couple of years. So that was great, right? I thought that we had dodged it. So fast forward to my second pregnancy when I was pregnant with Jackson. And it was the night before my C-section was scheduled. And we had stayed in Boise so that we didn't have to wake up super early. And this would have been in the beginning of February. So, with icy roads and things like that, we just wanted to make it easy. We went and stayed in town. We went out to dinner. It was kind of like a baby moon, if you will. Knowing that when we came home, though, we would be bringing home a baby with us. And wouldn't you know it, I ate something bad and I got sick in the hotel and I threw up so violently that, again, the same thing happened. The same eye, the same back of eye injury. I woke up the next morning with blood in my vision and I was so disappointed because things had improved so much over the last 3 years. But I brushed it aside, one, because we had a scheduled C-section that morning, like I had other things to be doing. But I also knew that, well, I've done this once. I can do it again. It's going to be no different than the last round was. So Jackson was born, all wonderful things. A couple of days later, we came home from the hospital. I think that was a Friday. Justin and I and Jackson and Jet all kind of hung around the house. And then the next day, which was Saturday, I remember taking Jackson up to my parents' house, which isn't very far from ours, so that they could meet her. And I carry her into their house and I sit down on the couch and all of a sudden, my eye starts bleeding. And this time I could see it. All of those other situations when I had been throwing up, it had been in the night. And so I had gone back to bed. So I had never actively seen the back of my eye bleeding, but it was like it was pumping out of an artery after you cut it. So imagine looking out into your world and seeing red blood pulsing into your vision. I was absolutely terrified, you guys. And it didn't matter what I did, nothing would stop it. So I called my retina specialist and left a voicemail on the emergency line. And thankfully, within a couple of hours, he called me back, which I was not expecting. And I was so very thankful that he did that. And he asked me if I could be there first thing the next day, which was a Sunday morning. And so I said, yep, I'll be there. I also had a 4-day-old baby at this point. I had no idea what was going to happen. I thought maybe I was going to have to go to the hospital or have some kind of surgery. Like, I didn't know. So I remember texting a friend at like 10 o'clock that night and being like, hey, are you by chance up? And thankfully she was. And I asked her if she would be willing to drive me to Boise the next day because I didn't want to take Jackson since she was so young and I didn't want Justin to have to drive me. So they stayed at home. My friend Jen drove me to the doctor. But let me back up really quickly. Before we get to leaving the house on Sunday morning, one of the doctor's suggestions was to make sure that I slept in an upright position. My head needed to be above my heart. So I remember sleeping on the couch because we have recliner couches. And I asked Justin if he would sleep out there with me because I was so scared and I could not sleep all night long. I just remember still having little bits of blood pulsing out. And I was so terrified and I thought that I was going to be blind and I had no idea. And I just remember praying to God and praying to Jesus, like, if these are the last things that I'm ever going to be able to see, like here I was also waking up every 2 hours. I mean, I wasn't necessarily waking up because I couldn't even go to sleep, but every couple of hours I was feeding Jackson. And I mean, even now, I just remember how terrified I was. And especially when it comes to something like that, like, what if I go blind? Again, I had never had this situation before. Anytime that it had happened previously, it was something that, I mean, it bled. I never saw it. It never bled again. It wasn't an issue. But all of that to say, so my friend Jen picks me up at like 6:30 in the morning. We get to Boise to the eye doctor first thing in the morning, and I have no idea what is going to happen. And so he takes me back into the office and he says, here's what we're going to do. I have to give you an injection in your eye to stop the bleeding. And I will tell you, you guys, I wasn't even afraid of the thought that I was going to have a needle in my eye because my alternative was, am I going to go blind? Like, I did not hesitate. I didn't care what it felt like. I thought, if this is what it's going to take to save my eyesight, to be present for my kids, to see their faces, to truly have vision again, I am absolutely going to do it without hesitation. I will tell you how this works because I'm sure that somebody is kind of curious about this. So they put numbing drops in, your eye is numb, then they do an injection to numb the rest of your eye. Then they did an injection, which was the medicine that basically kind of like cauterizes that vessel in the back of your eye. So it ended up being 2 injections. Ironically enough, on the last one, he did nick a vessel in the front of my eye. And I don't know that I'll ever be brave enough to show you guys. If you have been around long enough, you may remember this. But when I say like he nicked a vessel in the front of my eye, I remember him telling me, you need to have your friend come in here and look at this because I don't want you to leave this office and for her to think that I have done some kind of malpractice thing to you. That is how terrible that was. So here I went from, I was the only one who could see the issue in my eye to the whole world can. Not to mention, I also had a lip that was full of cold sores because apparently after having morphine during a C-section, I have that reaction where you get cold sores. That happened with both Jet and Jackson. I didn't even know that was a thing, but it was. So I have this big, terrifyingly fully red eye, my left eye, that it looks like I have been in a bar fight. I have a completely covered upper lip of cold sores. Oh my gosh. I literally looked like I was out of a horror film. But all of that to say, when most of us think about like, oh, getting a shot in your eye, that doesn't sound very comfortable. It sounds pretty rough. But after all of that, I thought, if I can do this, I can do anything because it completely reframed what hard meant to me. Because the truth is, I think most of the things that we consider to be hard, the emails we don't want to write, or the tough conversations that we avoid, or the projects that overwhelm us, they're not actually hard. They just feel hard because we've never been forced to stare down what real difficult or really hard or absolutely terrifying actually looks like. Once you have been backed into a corner like that, you gain perspective and you know the difference between what is inconvenience and what is true fear. So I know that was kind of a gruesome story, but here are the lessons that I learned from that and kind of what that experience taught me. First things first, pressure reveals strength. There are certain things that I do not love doing because, again, they feel hard or scary. But after living through that moment with my eye, I have realized that most of the things that I am afraid of or scary or that I think are hard, they're not that bad. I know what hard looks like. I know what terrifying feels like. And compared to all of that, speaking on stage or having a tough conversation, tackling a project that I'm intimidated by, making a cold call, whatever that is, like none of it measures up. Because once you have truly been backed into a corner, you stop being afraid of the things that used to paralyze you. Next one, you discover what really matters when those non-essentials fall away. So when you think you might lose something fundamental, like the vision in your eye, everything else fades. I wasn't thinking about my to-do list or my inbox. I wasn't worried about appearances or what people thought. Honestly, after the fact, I didn't even care what I looked like when it came to the fact that it looked like I had gotten beaten up and it was absolutely terrifying, something straight out of a horror film. Like, I didn't even care about that because I just wanted to be able to see my kids grow up. I wanted to live a normal, everyday life with my husband. And it's wild how quickly you realize what's worth your energy and what's not, and that you don't actually care what people think about how you look when everything else is stripped away. The next thing that it really taught me was that your capacity is often larger than you believe. We underestimate ourselves constantly. We think, oh, I could never handle that. But I have learned, especially looking back on one of the hardest years of our life, which was 2017, that you can survive things that you never, ever imagined. That was a year for us that truly broke us in so many ways that I wouldn't wish on anybody but it also really built what I would consider to be like steel within me. So now when I face something tough, I remind myself, I've done it before. I've survived 2017. I can do it again. And usually whatever I'm facing isn't even close to what I have already conquered. And I think I actually have recorded an episode in the past about what the hardest year of our lives was in 2017. So I'll make sure to link that just so that you guys can go back and listen to that if it's something that you're interested in. But again, usually whatever we're facing isn't even close to what it is that we have already conquered. Another thing that I have learned in this process is that fear clarifies your commitments. Back when my eye was bleeding and I thought about the possibility of losing my sight, the only thing that mattered was my husband and my children. They are my anchor. Everything else faded into the background, and fear really stripped away the noise and reminded me, this is my family, this is my life, these are the people I am willing to fight for. If it is anything outside of that, it does not matter. It really, really realigns those priorities. The other thing that I learned from this is we don't know the battles that others are fighting. Nobody knows that I still, almost 8 years later, see blood in my vision every single day. My eyes look completely normal when you look at me, but my left eye still carries the weight of what has happened. And I've adapted so much that I don't really even notice it most days unless it's really bright out or the snow is fresh and it's letting obviously a lot of light into your eye. But just because I've kind of moved past it and I have accepted it as every day and I've kind of figured out how to look around it, that doesn't mean that it's gone. That's the thing about pain though. Adaptation really hides that struggle and we learn to live with things and to normalize them. And from the outside, people assume that we are fine, but invisible doesn't mean imaginary. And some of the hardest battles that people are fighting are ones you will never see. That has really changed how I approach people, and it's taught me to give grace even when I don't know the whole story and to really seek understanding instead of trying to be understood. Because if you can look at me and never know that I am living with something like that, how many other people in life are carrying invisible burdens too? So when something feels hard, whether it is, a setback at work or a messy big to-do list or an uncomfortable conversation, I remind myself, this isn't hard compared to what I've done before. That is perspective, and it really does change everything. And I wouldn't wish that experience on anybody, but I also wouldn't erase it either because it showed me the strength that I didn't know that I had. If you were to ask me if that is something that I could go through and handle and not even, bat an eye at the thought of having to do eye injections or something of that nature, I would not believe you. But because it's happened to me, I know if I can do that, I can do anything. So I want to leave you with this. If you are in your scariest moment right now, you are stronger than you think. If you have walked through it already, let it give you perspective on what is scary, on what is hard, and what is not. And for all of us, remember that most people are carrying battles that we will never see. So always be somebody who leads with grace. Because if I can do that, if I can stare down the thought of going blind or not being able to see my family and my kids, I can do anything. And so can you. So I hope that that is something that is inspiring to somebody out there. I know that it is something that I have obviously looked back on and it continues to inspire me, just knowing I've done hard things in the past and I can do anything. So if this is something that resonated with you, please tell me, share it in your stories or send it to a friend who may need that reminder. I so appreciate you guys and I can't wait to see you back here next week. If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.